Our next speaker is Heinzpeter Schwermer, who is from the Federal Food Safety and Veterinary Office in Switzerland, and he's going to give a talk on RiBeS, an application for targeted sampling of cattle during meat inspection at Swiss abattoirs for animal health surveillance programs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dear colleagues, I would like to thank the organizers of this exciting World Buiatrics Congress to bring us here together in the beautiful city of Dublin. I have the pleasure to introduce RiBeS, an application for targeted sampling of cattle during meat inspection, to you. The tool was developed by the Department of Animal Health at the Swiss Federal Food Safety and Veterinary Office and realized by Identitas, the company that is also running the animal movement database in Switzerland. There, Gabi Freudiger was responsible for framing the software solution. At the federal office, Jörg Danuser, Martin Reist, and Josef Schmidt, you see that I have a lot of bosses, were in charge to push the development and implementation of RiBeS. My colleague Sarah Scherer and I were the project leaders. You may wonder what is so new or particularly interesting in sampling cattle at abattoirs for health surveillance programs. It has been common in many countries worldwide in the past. I hope that I can add some new aspects to this topic in the next minutes. The driver for abattoir sampling are that it is easier and more economical than on-farm sampling. In past abattoir surveys, the information after sampling was very limited, often only to the fact that it was a bovine from that country. Even less animals to be sampled could be determined beforehand, as it is necessary for targeted or risk-based sampling, the method we use in Switzerland in surveillance programs. But now, let's first move to Switzerland and its cattle. Switzerland is a small country in Europe and surrounded by countries belonging to the European Union. It is in some way an island like Ireland. There are 40,000 cattle farms in Switzerland. More than half are dairy operations. Most cattle are kept in the lowlands in the north of the country. A quarter of the bovines is moved to the mountain pasture in the Alps during the summer. However, the larger abattoirs are also located in the lowlands. Each bovine is registered in the animal movement database with some additional information on the animal. Every movement is registered in the animal movement database too. Cattle for slaughter are sold and moved nationwide. There are 600 abattoirs for cattle, most of them are small or very small. The proportion of beef and suckler herds is increasing. This is important as taking samples on these farms is often especially laborious and dangerous for the farmers and the veterinarians, as you might know better than me. We have some candidate diseases to be surveyed using abattoir sampling. Firstly, we conduct annual surveys to demonstrate freedom from infectious bovine rhinotracheitis and exotic bovine leukosis. Switzerland is free of these diseases since many years. We allocate the farms to the surveillance program partly risk-based or randomly. On non-dairy farms, a blood sample is collected from bovines older than 24 months. We are not free from bovine viral diarrhea, but most of the farms are. On non-dairy farms, a spot test of at least 5 animals of a certain age is done. However, only 1/3 of the farms is tested annually. We take about 40,000 samples annually and test them for IBR, EBL, or BVD. The main motivation to shift to abattoir sampling is economical. It allows us to use centralized and already available infrastructure to be used in real life and in information technology. However, the main driver to launch abattoir sampling was our expectation that it is easier and less dangerous than on-farm sampling. Of course, we analyzed before if such a system is worthwhile. We calculated that it is beneficial, but a large amount of samples are needed due to the fixed and running costs of the centralized system. So what we did, we developed a tool to signalize during meat inspection if an animal should be sampled and what specimens should be sampled. The selection of farms and animals in a surveillance program uses data available in the AMD. Currently, we use lists of farms and animals that were selected, and this list can be linked. The surveillance programs can be defined in many ways. For example, they can be restricted to certain abattoirs. Thus, the tool can be used for a variety of purposes. Before we started the implementation, my colleague Sarah Scherer conducted a feasibility study, her PhD work, on abattoir sampling. The study indicated that we need to connect our system with the ERP systems of the abattoirs, as the meat inspectors work on these systems. Two possibilities for blood sampling were identified: from the heart during inspection of the organs or at the carcass. Which possibility is used depends on the abattoir-specific space and workflow. She investigated also the abattoirs necessary to reach a national coverage of the cattle population. The best solution comprised the 7 largest abattoirs where 90% of the cattle are slaughtered. In the last 2 years, we connected these 7 abattoirs with our system. Although RiBeS was developed also for small abattoirs, we started with these most important partners. We found solutions for the additional workload of the meat inspectors and implemented the operational concept with the regional veterinary offices. Interestingly, the abattoir companies supported the project actively in the sense of a good collaboration. We decided to use the sampling in 2016 only for the BVD surveillance program. Technically, the tool comprises 2 parts, a database with web service and a web application. The first is used to connect to the ERP systems and exchange information with these systems automatically. The second is used for all abattoirs to proceed with the samples taken. Alone, it can also be used for sampling at small abattoirs without an ERP system. I assume you all expect a diagram of the tool. Okay, here's the simple one. I really like it. With RiBeS, we convert cattle most efficiently to barcode-labeled samples and are happy with that. But maybe this series diagram tells you more how the system works and the roles of the involved parties. Most important is the two-way interface between the ERP system at the abattoir and the RiBeS database. For our office, the centralized data analysis of the sampling data and the lab results is also crucial. The web service between the ERP and the RiBeS in more detail. The ERP sends a request for each slaughtered bovine. The request is unique in the AMD for the date, the abattoir, and the ear tag. RiBeS answers the request if the animal is to be sampled. Then the animal is highlighted at the meat inspection. The sampling is confirmed back to the RiBeS database. We are in the first year to use RiBeS operationally. It is an explorative use, but we are above the limits needed to reach the planned sample number of at least 30,000 samples this year. As we had no experience, we had to make some tuning to the system. For example, we observed in simulations that sampling will be more intensive in the beginning. Therefore, we decided to separate a main season sampling in the beginning from a longer low-season sampling in the remaining year, and to have additional personnel at meat inspection only in the main season. Thus, almost 95% of the samples that are signalized can be taken and shipped, much more than the 80% we assumed during planning without additional personnel. Although the tool is very flexible and can be used for many programs, taking samples at the abattoir is limited by practical constraints. These are time and personnel. Also, more than 2 or maybe 3 different programs at the same time cannot be handled by meat inspectors. To gain economical benefits, programs with large numbers of samples are needed. We use RiBeS currently not in the smaller abattoirs, what was the plan before. Occasionally, problems occur due to data quality and software stability. After the first months of operational use, we can see that the system is accepted by all users and is good working under full load. The economical benefits we have foreseen can be reached. Additionally, the collaboration creates some benefits in itself. With shifting the sampling to the abattoir, we have reduced the burdens for animals, field veterinarians, and farmers. I would like to finish with this picture of blood samples collected with RiBeS. And RiBeS is an acronym from the German Rindviehbeprobung am Schlachthof, which means sampling cattle at the abattoir, but the acronym would not be so nice. It also is the botanical name of the red currant, which is a symbol for the bleeding heart, because the panicles look like a blood clot. So it seems that we can bury them with RiBeS successfully. Thank you for your attention, and I await questions, but no botanically questions, please.
Thank you, Heinzpeter. Any questions for Heinzpeter?
If you find these diseases at the abattoir, are you going back to the farms of origin and helping them with some kind of a control program, or that's
the plan, and
that's really impressive. Actually.
So taking samples at the abattoir has the intrinsic problem that you sample animals that are more healthy than usual animals. So it only is possible for diseases with no clinical manifestation. And in our case, it's mostly sampling to prove the freedom from disease in the country. So it is the plan, if there is a positive sample, to go back to the farm and take additional samples. I must correct a bit, for BVD it's different, because we really took the original scheme with spot tests on the farms, on the sampling, on the abattoir sampling. And there in the positive cases we found now, we always had 5 to 10 positive samples from the abattoir. So they were serological positive, so it was indicative of an infection on that farm, then there is no additional sample need. But if there is only one sample positive, one should go on the farm and search for the cause for this positive result.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much, Heinzpeter.
Thank you.